Well, hello. Welcome to my bunker. I've been having some nagging questions lately, some creeping questions. When I look around and I see all the stuff that I have been gathering, I have to ask, am I buying things to fill the capitalist void in my heart? Am I surrounding myself with objects to cushion the impact of our crumbling and failing infrastructures? I don't know. Is my thrifting habit just doomsday prepping? We are going to cook up this idea on the highest heat possible and see what we can make. Will we make something completely new? Maybe. Probably, yes. Maybe this will be absolutely nonsensical, but we're just gonna do it anyway, because why not? It's worth thinking about. My first thought is that, really, there are only two types of people who watch these videos. They're usually just thrifters or preppers. So I would say that to both of you watching this, that it seems on first glance like that you're really different, because you're both engaged in projects of acquiring objects, but the objects are very different. So the thrifter buys books, DVDs, sweaters, cute knickknacks, while the prepper buys food and seed packets and water. And so you can see how, at first glance, this makes thrifters and doomsday preppers very different, because the thrifter is buying objects to enjoy in the present, I would say, and the doomsday prepper is buying objects for survival in the future. Okay, well, case closed. Or is it? I'm gonna turn up the heat and get it going, because I am convinced in my heart that the cool urban thrifter is like an estranged cousin to the doomsday prepper, and that these two are functioning within the same family structure under the thumb of the patriarch, which is global industrial capitalism. Both the doomsday prepper and the thrifter are part of a Pokemon line of evolution. Here's a diagram. I'm going to show you my diagram. Here is the evolution for the thrifter. You begin with thrifting as an activity. So this is the person who does thrifting. So thrifting is just one activity in the function of an overall person's well-being. So it looks like the sentence, sometimes I get things from the thrift store. Okay, we all do, right? And then there is an evolution into the thrifter. This is the moving from the activity phase to the identification phase. So here, thrifting really becomes an extension of personal narrative and meaning in the plan for a person's well-being. So here, thrifting is not just something that you do occasionally. It's like your vibe. It's your brand. It's just kind of what you do and how you are. And going thrifting and the objects that you're acquiring through thrifting are really shaping your identity. This can evolve even further into what I call the maximal collector, and this is pretty much your final boss. So we've moved from the identification stage to the primary organizer. This is, of course, when collecting objects and surrounding yourself with objects becomes the primary organizer of your personal and your social life. The dark side of this would be hoarding, and the light side, I suppose, would be collecting on a maximal scale, or just truly bringing in mass amounts of objects. Also, in this state, collecting and thrifting turn into kind of a political statement and start to define your relationship with the outside world in general. The same 3-stage evolution can apply to the Doomsday Prepper. You kind of begin in stage 1. This is just the activity phase. So this is the person who emergency prepares. And this person just is gonna have an extra can of food and water and first aid, and their attitude might be, oh, things happen in the world and it's good to be prepared. This can evolve to the prepper, the identification phase, where prepping becomes an extension of their personal narrative. You start to get the formation of communities, and you start to get certain associations in popular culture, personality trait. I would say at the identification phase for each, this is when subcultures begin to form. The final stage is, of course, the primary organizer. Now this kind of looks like the bunker dweller. This is when prepping becomes a bit of a full politic, a full sense of well-being, and begins to look like a political affiliation in people. That's the bunker dweller. So when I say that thrifting and prepping might be members of the same messed up little family, I'm not talking about people who sometimes thrift, or people who have some extra food in their pantry or a first aid kit. I'm talking about that identification phase. The phase where both prepping and thrifting begin to form a new personality and meaning. So I've seen a lot of evidence for the identification phase in popular culture. So for example, like if you spend time on social media a lot, if you're chronically online, such as myself, especially on TikTok, thrifting has taken on a very strong narrative, like a social narrative, so it tends to align itself with sustainability, climate justice, a response to overconsumption, and kind of a spirit of a proud, effort to breathe new life into secondhand items, and to kind of reuse and not waste. So I've seen, though, an additional element into this social narrative about thrifting, and I watched one video on YouTube in particular. But the funny thing is, when I went to find it again, search for it again, I couldn't find it because there are so many of this type of video. So the format of the video typically follows a person who is showing us their vast physical collection of media, and they're explaining to us watching that they've made these choices to hunt down older, new, but also used vintage media, because they explain that they have a fundamental lack of trust in digital platforms to be able to be secure, long-lasting, and actually financially reasonable as far as housing our media and allowing us to have access to our media. So I have also seen this trend with books, for sure. It's not just DVDs and vinyl and all kinds of stuff. One YouTuber I saw, he cited Amazon's recent deletion of some editions of George Orwell's 1984 and An Animal Farm. This was a deletion not just from the store, but from people's individual Kindles, like on your personal password protected private device. This is from the National Coalition Against Censorship. They said that Amazon's decision to reach privately owned Kindles in order to delete the unauthorized material demonstrates that companies already have absolute technological control over electronic literature. The concern here is that you don't own an ebook, you are renting it, and you're paying a lot of money to rent it, and it can be removed from your device at any point. There is a fear that without the ownership, true ownership, like it's on my shelf, of our things, we remain vulnerable to large industrial systems that are supposed to support us, but they do and they don't. And thrifting and collecting becomes this act to construct a bit of a personal database of objects as insurance against collapse or misuse of these mass kind of global supply chain systems. There is a lack of trust in their integrity, and this sounds very familiar to me. It sounds eerily like another kind of person, the prepper. There's this show on National Geographic, I think it's called Doomsday Prepper, and the opening line is, "For every person, there's a moment when they discover that the world and everything they hold dear can be taken away. That's why I'm a prepper," says a series of people in response to the first sentence. Their worries in the show range from natural disasters or accidents to the government collapsing, or the government not supporting people, or war or disease that will impact supply chains. So the worries here are kind of all over the place. On the extreme end of the evolution, I watched a documentary this year called Bunker. I'll put a poster on the screen. It was really good. This examines that most evolved form in which, in bunker psychology, you're recognizing not just the threats of initial societal collapse, but you're recognizing the threat of other people afterward. So the bunker prepper even goes so far, like this documentary shows, they even go so far as to completely export the job of organizing their post-apocalypse experience to private companies or individuals to arrange. So the company or the person provides everything for them: food, water, the bunker. Here, the bunker mentality kind of comes full circle in this weird way, where the lack of trust in our world's ability to persevere becomes replaced by the trust that the bunker itself will somehow persevere. This creates some kind of black hole in space and time where happiness and humanity is just sucked into the bunker. Anyway, it seems that documentary was fascinating. Let's be clear. Bunkerism is fascinating. It triggered a lot of my thoughts about my own bunker of sorts. The Grinch lives in a bunker, sheltered away from the rest of the world. Only, what we're trying to figure out is what's going on. What is the difference between these two? It seems that through this video, which is highly scientifically rigorous, it's pretty much a dissertation-worthy deep dive, let's be honest, that both thrifting and prepping can manifest as individuals trying to shore up their insurance against collapse, right? The people getting the DVDs because Netflix could go away at any moment. Why wouldn't a digital platform just disappear or delete Harry Potter or Mansfield Park or any of the content that they're licensing, right? Spotify doesn't pay artists well, and where do you go? Where do you go? For some people, it's collecting physical media. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking there's so many kinds of thrifting. Like, what about people who just want to look cool? They just want to look like they came out of the 90s and it's not that deep. What about people who just want to save money? And thrifting's not, totally political. They're just trying to save money or reduce their carbon footprint. It's not that deep. Well, to you, skeptic, I would say, yes, you're right. There seems to be nothing that similar at the start between thrifting and prepping. The similarities seem to only creep in as those turn into a psychological mechanism, a protective mechanism that helps shape a person's identity. So there does seem to be not a lot of use in comparing to initially. It might not be that deep. So I would say, in response to that, because the overlap that is present, once you really it takes forever for them to get like this, but once they do overlap, it's so interesting and worth thinking about that what we might need to do is throw all of this away and pluck out what we have discovered as similarities and give it a completely new name. Make a completely new category. There's thrifters, and there's doomsday preppers, and then there are doomsday thrifters. With the creation of a new category, we can acknowledge that thrifters are diverse in their reasons for thrifting and give doomsday thrifters the specific study and the specific attention that they deserve. I think what the doomsday thrifter captures as a category is that there is a type of relationship with objects that is largely in a bunker dynamic, in which some people do insulate themselves from the outside world, and in some types of collecting behavior, thrifting behavior, as well as with prepping, it aligns itself based on a lack of trust. A lack of trust in our society, a lack of trust in other people, a lack of, there's this feeling that I'm not aligned with the outside world, that the outside world, whether it's a job that's really hard, or school, or other people, or nature, that the outside is rough and inside is good and safe, and I can prepare against whatever mess is outside or will be outside. The thing is that doomsday thrifters can kind of operate covertly, and they get all the societal benefits of being associated with like a cool aesthetic, right? Like pop culture aesthetics, having books, having cool books, vinyl, skateboards, whatever, while preppers are left to be kind of the butt of the joke. Like, they're accused of being fringe, conspiratorial weirdos who would rather live in an uncanny valley bunker than just die already with the rest of us when the sun explodes. Whenever. Maybe a Library of Congress size DVD collection is similarly ridiculous. I don't know. It could be. Like, maybe you don't need to watch Hereditary again, over and over and over. A24 freaks? I don't know. Maybe both categories of people deserve to be bullied on the internet. Maybe neither of them do. Maybe that's bad. I don't know. Maybe planning for collapse is a worthwhile endeavor. And maybe that lack of trust in our corporate institutions is wise. Because they're not going to keep Hereditary on forever. Someone might take your A24 movies away. And I do see, like, why would they keep it up forever? I don't know. I do know that I am left to analyze my own choices here at this point. If I personally am at some level a doomsday thrifter, I wonder, am I using my limited funds that I get from my job to collect items from the past, to cling on to it, because I feel that the world is disappearing, to avoid hardship? Do I safeguard myself against the bitter world outside and fundamentally systems that do not have my best interest in mind? If I stopped buying things, if I challenged my question to items, would that be similar to accepting death and decline and turn me into a bit of a stoic? Is the choice Funko Pops or stoicism? I don't know. These are questions that I will leave us both with and never think about again, because I love thrifting. And I don't care if it's neurotic. I love it. Thank you for joining me in my bunker. And thank you for watching. It's been maybe 2 months since I moved here, and the amount of items is rapidly expanding. I will need to curb my appetite for things and for stuff. But I hope that you are doing well, that you are holed up in your own bunker of choosing, and that it is serving you well. Ultimately, probably owning things is very wise and very human. And nobody, to be clear, nobody deserves to be bullied. That was a joke. Except for A24 fans. I will be seeing you again in the next video. There is a chance I might even do a roleplay video at some point. I've always been averse to it, but in the spirit of openness and neuroplastic change, I might do it. And I think I have an idea. So that will not be the majority of my content. But I do want to try one, because life is short. Okay. Thank you again. I'm rambling. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go get a coffee. I really hope that you are all doing good. It is getting colder. Please stay warm and cozy and comfortable. Pro objects over here, pro thrifting. I hope you are surrounded by some creature comforts in this world. So, thank you.